What's going on, YouTube? This is Anthony here, and I'm happy to be celebrating 1 year on YouTube since January 12th, 2021 to January 12th, 2022. And I'm going to go over some of the experiences that I had on this channel. First things first, because I got my 1,000 subs and my 4,000 hours recently, I'm now part of the YouTube partnership program. And I just got in the mail my confirmation for my address and my identity so that I could join the YouTube partnership program. Just opened it up and I saw that I have to fill in a PIN number when I go back on the computer and let them know that here I am, this is me. So then we could start doing business together through the Google AdSense program. So to start off, I'm going to reflect on why I'm into firewood. I'm sure some of my viewers have wondered that. There's been some phases that have brought me to where I am today with firewood, and I could go back as far as when I was a kid. Now, when I was young, my parents got me into the Scouts. There's a lot of outdoors here in Ontario, as a lot of you probably know, and there's a lot of camping and fishing and hunting and all those things. And the Boy Scouts really opened me up to the environment. Even winter camping we did, which is a horrible experience for me. My parents weren't there, and you're depending on other adults to help you out and everything. First night I got there, my gloves actually fell in the snow and I had wet gloves and I just wasn't prepared for it. And I was only probably about, I don't know, maybe 8, maybe 9 years old. So we did a lot of camping in other places. We even hiked the Bruce Trail, which is a trail that goes from an area called Tobermory, which is up where Georgian Bay joins on to Lake Huron. It runs all the way south from there down to Niagara Falls. I'm not sure how many kilometers or how many miles the Bruce Trail is, but it's an extremely long trail. It's nothing that you're gonna walk in a week's time. So it covers a lot of territory, and what we did that time was I remember we did 27 kilometers in 2 days. I'm not sure if I started at the back of the whole group or the middle or whatever, but I did work my way up to the front with all the guys who were heading it up. We carried all our pack with us. We had all our food, everything. We didn't have anybody driving and bring anything with us. So that was a great experience. I remember it was in late summer or something like that, or maybe even in towards the fall. And I just remember walking through the country, up some of the side roads and then through the woods and then through some of the parks. And I believe part of it was the scenic caves, where it's a bunch of cave systems that are in the rocks. It's a great experience. I remember also we were at one spot where there's a body of water and people were fishing there. I remember the fish sitting in they had like a pot with water and they threw the fish in there. They had the fish sitting in there. And that was really interesting to me at that time. So I guess I was just in tune with fishing. We did a lot of campfires and stuff like that. Also, my uncle was into the outdoors and he would go to the parks and he would have fires there. So I remember experiences there, and I swear that one time we were walking in the coals and the fire, and some of you may have heard that you can walk through the coals and not get burnt. And for some reason, I think that we didn't have our shoes on. We were walking through the coals and we didn't get burned. I'd like to go back to that day to see exactly what happened, because it's so long ago that I can't remember. Fast forward to 98, a friend of mine asked me to go camping one time, and I still actually had some gear left over. And he said, we're going to camp out on a little tiny island at the backside of a lake. So I said, okay, I'll pack up my gear and we'll go. Now, it was the Victoria Day weekend, which was the second last Saturday in May. And sometimes the weather is cold at that time. I've actually seen it snow up north on the Monday when we're leaving. And I've seen where it's gotten so hot that I actually got sunburn. Yes, I do get sunburn. But what happened then was it was extremely hot, which is pretty rare. I mean hot where it's like it was muggy and it was sweaty, like it was like July, even though it was, the end of May. We got there at night and, I didn't know what to expect. It was a little scary, just driving into the woods. I haven't done that in years, right? How old was I at that time? I was 20 years old. I remember getting up there and, we actually slept in the vehicles that night. It was horrible because of the mugginess. The mosquitoes were insane. And we had to sleep in the vehicles that night and wait till we could rent the boat in the morning so that we go to the island. A couple of the guys were up there. The guy who invited me was up there already, and they were trekking through the bushes and whatnot, and they just got killed with mosquitoes. And one guy actually had to go home because he got bitten so bad by the mosquitoes. The next morning, it cooled down, and it just turned out to be the most beautiful weekend. We rented the boat, we went over to the island, and it's a perfect little campsite if you have one group of people. I remember going and taking wood from the uh, not much of a forest on the island, but we would go to the mainland and we would take wood so that we could cook on the fire using the wood that we found. And from then I was hooked. I also picked up the fishing rod and started fishing. And then even when the bait got low, I went and started swatting dragonflies out of the sky with the boat oar and using them for bait. My buddy said, "Well, you're not going to be able to do that." And sure enough, I did. So I kept catching bass off of the rock on the island, and then the pike started coming in, and then we're out in the boat also too. There was another guy who was not in tune with this whole lifestyle, and the two of us, we got lucky and we got fish right off the bat. That summer I ended up going back there 3 times, so I went there 4 times that year. I just made the trek on my own with some friends, and ever since then I've been going back there every year. There's some videos that I uploaded on the channel where I'll recap. It's at the same lake. I've been going there for, this is 2022, so wow, that's 25 seasons that I've been going up to the lake. So moving forward from there, I'm here at my workshop, and we pulled out the furnace years ago because the gas bill was too much. The furnace wasn't running properly, so it was inefficient, costing too much gas, and we didn't want the expense here, right? We're just trying to cut down expenses all around. So then my friends started putting wood stoves in their shop, and eventually, after some time, as much as it never gets freezing in here, it helps with the damp air, and that's what really gets you cold, right? I was just using an electric heater in my office. I started trying to figure out how to find wood, and at first you start with scrap wood that you get 2x4s. I'm in the junk remove business. Then I started, breaking down the skids and using those. And then while I was driving around in my other job, I noticed that there's wood on the side of the road. So then I started picking up my own wood and learning about the drying process and everything. I realized that not all wood is good, so let me bring it in and start learning what's what and try and sell some. Whatever wood I found, I bring it in and try and identify it. And that's what really got me into trying to identify trees. I just went all out with the tree ID and started looking at all the encyclopedias on Wikipedia, tree ID sites, tree atlas sites, and I started learning how to identify the wood. So then my other business, it wasn't going like it used to. So I thought, okay, well, maybe I have to get into something else to make income. And that's when I started getting into selling firewood. And after about a year, maybe a year and a half, then I decided to get really big into it. It coincided with the time when a lot of ash trees were getting cut down in the city. So that provided a lot of good wood and wood that dried fast. So when I really got into it, it was in July of 2013. And then I just started bringing wood like crazy into the shop here. There was so much wood accumulating here that it was just a disaster here. And it was actually threatening to block up my roll-up door. And I used to keep my smaller boat inside my shop. And, come time to go fishing, then my boat would be blocked in. And fortunately, I got the wood out of the way or processed or whatever so that I could take my boat out and go fishing. Then I said, okay, well, you know what, I'm going to need a bigger place, because I started even selling 30-yard bins full of wood, and I started acquiring crates to put the wood in. And then I built a big shelf outside because I figured if I don't have much space to store the wood, then the best thing I could do is go to vertical storage. So I built my big ready rack frame outside, and it's 24 feet long and it's about 14 feet high. And the way I set it up is all the inside measurements are 8x4x4, so I could put a full cord in there. Also too, I took these crates here, I'll show you. I got these shelves in scrap metal, and I started erecting these up so I could stack wood in here. So I actually used to bring all my split logs, and then I would put them on the shelf here, and I was worried about the weight and them falling, but they never did. And of course, even if they're heavy at the time, the wood dries, so eventually the weight load would lighten on them. But I used to have all kinds of fans up here circulating the air so that the wood could dry, and then I used this area over top my office to store my kindling bags. So when I first started out, I tried a political channel first, but the censorship hit me right away. So I said, okay, let me not get into that, because I don't want to have these restrictions all the time, and maybe even you're not allowed to post videos for a while. I had this idea about the Firewood channel for, I don't know, maybe a couple of years. Finally, I got into it and I started putting up videos. I actually had some videos stored in my phone that I took while I was out delivering firewood and stuff like that. So I uploaded those. That's where I started. My first video was about IBC totes and it did really well. I hate watching that video because that's the heaviest I ever was at 206 pounds, which is not a lot, but you know, I was used to being like 180 pounds around there. Right now I'm about 196 and I'm not losing the weight come springtime like I used to. So I really don't like looking at that video, you know? But anyways, my next significant video of after that was when I really started to have more of like a format, more of like a TV show kind of style format. That's when I went up to the farm and I delivered the 6 cords to the farmer.
You have reached your destination.
What's going on? How you doing? It was a freezing day that February, and I didn't have my regular driver, who was Larry, who brings a roll-off truck. We had a lot of fun there. We dumped the wood in a big pile out in the front yard. The driver is amazing. He got that wood piled right up. It wasn't all laid out and spread out. He had a nice pile, and he just knew how to manipulate that box so that he could get that wood dumped in a small footprint. So I guess the highlight of doing this channel was when I took the trip to Easton Made Log Splitter Factory, which is in Perth, Ontario. That's about, I guess, 3 hours drive from me. And I decided to do it when I was going on a fishing trip. And it was about an hour away from there. So I figured might as well take the drive down there and see what's going on and check out their factory and see what their machines are like in person.
Anthony.
Pleasure to meet you, Anthony.
Yeah, you too, man.
And meeting Andrew, I've heard a lot about the brand. I've heard a lot about Andrew and how good the service is at that company. Talked about all the equipment. We talked about Firewood. We even talked a little bit about fishing, but I got to tour the facility, and even though it was a Friday afternoon at about 5 o'clock, I got him to fire up the machine and split some logs. And we had a few laughs. I was really impressed with what was going on there because I researched log splitters for about 10 years. And everything came back to Easton Made, and the orange and blue colors of the machines really stood out. You know, such good reviews. And then I also saw that Andrew had his own channel for Easton Made, and I started tuning into that. And I saw how big this brand was all over the internet. One of the viewers pointed out that when he was cutting logs with the chainsaw, that the chainsaw shavings were going right into his beer. That was pretty funny. I didn't notice that myself, but here's the clip. If I were to buy any splitter, it would be an Easton Made. I do have a splitter that needs to be reinforced and then I can put it back into action. But if I didn't have that machine, I was looking to purchase one, I would definitely go with Easton Made. As for which model, I'd probably get the 2228 because that one's the big tough one that can deal with all the tree service wood and all the big diameter stuff. As some of you know, I'm into fishing and I'm into World War II, so I thought I'd incorporate some of those elements into the channel. I didn't get to cook any fish on the fire this year. I didn't really keep any fish. I usually don't anyway, but I like to keep more because the fish in the supermarket is so expensive. It's garbage. It's a lot of farm stuff. And there's not any really good species out there too. So I was really hoping to, keep more fish. But when I go up to the lake, I'd really like to spend time in the boat fishing instead of, being on shore, gutting the fish, cleaning the fish, filleting, even seasoning, packaging, even cooking at the lake. I just don't like doing any of that when I'm up there because it takes so much time to prepare for the trip. Usually I'm there for 3 days unless I rent a place for a week. So I'd rather just spend as much time as I can on the water. I had a lot of fun this year with fishing. I have an ice fishing video and we didn't catch anything up at Lake Simcoe, which is bigger than the city of Toronto. We used to go up there and nail perch all day long, any time of the year, but the fishing isn't so good anymore. So it was a bit of a waste of time, but I thought I'd put the video up to show you guys the experience. So then when the weather warmed up, I went up to my lake, went for Canada Day, which is July 1st, and I went for Labor Day weekend. July 1st did really well with the bass. I go for smallmouth bass, generally just giant smallmouth that we're getting on the spots where we fish, and did really well on Canada Day weekend. But then Labor Day, the fishing wasn't that good at all. We only got 1 or 2 okay ones, nothing special. But there's a big fireworks show on the lake, which is kind of, the closing of the summer. So I don't mind going up there and enjoying that. Timing is everything, right? And then back in the fall, I went salmon fishing, and that was somewhat of a hit. I think it's people looking up on YouTube. They didn't find much videos of the place where I go to fish for salmon. And the video did get some hits. Yeah, it was a good day. I got some new subs at the river, and I got some good footage, and really played around with the editing and stuff to make it interesting. Speaking of, doing the filming, I ended up getting a GoPro, so that really helped out. And the stabilization feature is really well. I had a lot of people compliment me on the better footage because, with my cell phone, the footage was all choppy and everything. It wasn't as clear, and then I started using the 2.7K format, and that made for some really clear videos. And the first video that I used that camera for was when I went for the Nature Walk Tree ID video up in Muskoka, Ontario. The GoPro really came through for me. I didn't know how to use it whatsoever. I ended up getting some really good footage. That was a big step up with my game of filming the channel. I really enjoyed doing the tree ID videos. I don't know, there's just something about the forestry here that I just love. I love that, there's so many hardwood trees that you can get good heat out of. Do I think it's the most scenic in the world, this type of environment? No, I don't, but there's just something to it. Going through the seasons and, the leaves changing color, going into winter. And, winter, yeah, it's cold and treacherous, but sometimes it's just beautiful, like say you're up in the forest or you're up in cottage country, and the lake's frozen, it's covered in snow, and all the trees have that darkish gray color, and you get the spring come and rejuvenate everything, and you get all the growth. There's just something about being in the forest that I enjoy. All the uses that wood has and its need for survivability in life. As much as we have all this technology and we have all these synthetic, or we have these plastics, or we have concrete, we have all these elements, we still need wood today, very much so. And obviously, wood was needed 10 times more than it is today. Doing these nature walks and identifying trees, I thought these videos would be a hit, but not really. That's something that really made me feel good. I like to find new places to go do the tree ID videos and continue doing them, but I'd like to also see more diverse species. It's not too diverse here, generally. What you're going to see is maybe about 12 to 15 different types of trees on a regular basis. That's including all the subspecies of each family of trees. So, there's lots of oak here, but it's generally white oak and red oak that you'll see mostly. Then we have ash, beech, we have different types of elm, we have honey locust and black locust, and then we have the birch family, which also incorporates poplar and linden, aka basswood, and cottonwood. Poplar is also called aspen. Then we have some walnut. We have some hickory here, which is pretty rare. Yeah, I definitely like to get out there and see what's there, and provide some more visuals for the people who are viewing, not just the tree ID, but some of the nice places that I go to as well. About the World War II element to my channel, so I have probably one of the biggest private World War II documentary collections in the world. The magnitude of that era just fascinated, and all the places in the world that were affected by it, all the people that were affected by it. There's just so much to that story. The scenery of Europe, it was the technology that was invented. There's also the efficiency of production, which really increased and really brought us into the modern era. So here in Hamilton, Ontario, which is about an hour west from Toronto, we have the Canadian Warplane Heritage Museum, and there's an Avro Lancaster 4-engine heavy bomber that was used in Britain during World War II, and it's one of only 2 flying Lancasters in the whole world. And there's a charter flight available where you can board the Lancaster, and it takes you on a tour over Toronto and over Niagara Falls. For years I've been going there to do footage of the plane, and so this year I had the GoPro and I had a better camera on my smartphone, and so I went down there and I filmed a video of that plane doing engine startup and taking off, and got some really good footage. Can't really zoom with my GoPro camera while you're in footage, so I had to use my cell phone, but I got a great shot of the plane taking off right from the edge of the runway, basically just outside the fence of the perimeter of the airport. Here we go with startup. one element of World War II that's a lot closer to me is that this shop that I'm in right now is actually part of a whole complex where they used to build munitions for World War II that was set up in 1940. This is one of the original buildings, and there's a number that are still here in the area. And there's some underground tunnel systems. Yeah, a lot of history in this place. And there was some people who did some research on it, so I got some information on the tunnels. They're called the Gecko tunnels. Gecko stands for General Electric Company, and that's who actually built this complex here. And then we had a GM plant, which is next door to it, and that's where they built some of the Sherman tanks for the war effort. It's nice to be occupying a little part of that history. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'm looking forward to see what happens in 2022, my second year of this channel. So tune in and see what adventures come. It's coming out of winter. It's been a hard winter with all the bad weather, all the snow and everything. So hopefully when spring comes around, I get a lot of good video content and make some more interesting videos for you guys to check out. So thanks for watching, and like, subscribe, share, comment, and all that good stuff.